So yesterday we talked about how food trends affect market demands, and the most popular food trends today in America are the organic foods and local grown, non-GMO, and how processors use that to meet the market demands and create market distribution plans. And we created those on our own, and that's what we worked on last week. But today we're going to go ahead and start off. I'm going to pass you out a handout, and we're going to read it together as a class. We'll kind of start over here with Michelle and weave our way around. Go back here to Blake and Bo, and then we're just going to read it out loud together so we can follow along. So once you get done reading a paragraph, you can just go to the next person, and we'll just go around the classroom.
Almost 5 years old now. Kendall,
You can just make up your own last.
Pickering is right on track. She can walk, run, talk, and say her ABCs. And while that normal progression of ability is common to many children her age, might not seem all that impressive. To her mother and father, Michelle Wakely Pickerick and Dave Pickerick, it's a miracle.
Little Kendall was born 3 months premature on September 21st, 2011. Her earlier arrival was a result of a Listeria infection contracted from her mother, who had eaten some contaminated cantaloupe the previous month. When she was born, the doctors warned her parents about all sorts of dire medical complications that she could develop: blindness, deafness, mental retardation, cerebral palsy, and others.
The dire prognosis was offered even before the doctors ran blood tests and discovered something even more troubling. Both mother and daughter had listeriosis, a foodborne disease. They had suspected that Michelle had an infection of some sort, but didn't know what it was until getting the results of the blood tests.
It was terrible, said Michelle. They didn't even know why they were sick until the next day. Kendall is well on her way after a rough start in life.
You got it. Sorry. The Listerious infections the mother and baby were suffering from were part of an outbreak traced to cantaloupe grown by Jensen Farms in Colorado in 2011. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, at least 147 people in 28 states were confirmed as part of the outbreak. At least 33 deaths and 1 miscarriage were officially attributed to the outbreak.
Kendall was one of the 3 newborns diagnosed with Listeria infections during the outbreak.
A week before she was born, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration announced a voluntary recall of the entire crop of fresh whole cantaloupe from Jensen Farms. But the news about the Listeria outbreak linked to cantaloupe wasn't widespread when Kendall was born because people were just beginning to get sick. It can take up to 70 days for symptoms to develop after exposure.
Listeriosis is caused by Listeria, a type of bacteria that is commonly found in water, soil, and feces. Raw vegetables and fruits can become contaminated with Listeria either through contact with soil or with animal manure that is used as fertilizer. Humans are infected when they consume foods or beverages that harbor the bacteria.
So Listeria, which can survive freezing and grow in refrigerated temperatures above 40 degrees, is responsible for around 1,600 illnesses and 260 deaths in the U.S. yearly, according to the CDC. Pregnant women and their unborn babies are especially vulnerable, with pregnant women 20 times more likely to develop listeriosis than the general population. Just recently, Kendall attended a reunion of parents and their children who had been in the newborn infants care unit at St. Vincent's Hospital in Indianapolis. The nurses were amazed, Michelle said. She seems to be on track. We're so lucky that she has overcome most of the odds. And while they're pleased with their daughter's mental development, Michelle said they won't know how far she has come until she starts school and faces harder challenges. She's small, very small for her age. She might have to go through a program for growth hormone shots based on her projected bone growth. Right now, we're feeling hopeful, said Michelle. Yet, she has this reoccurring question. You look back, she said, and think, all of this because of food. So, can someone raise their hand and tell me what this article was about? Andrew.
A premature child that was infected with Listeria from bad cantaloupe.
Yeah, okay. So there was a Listeria outbreak in the cantaloupe. What did the government implement? What kind of procedures did they do to control control this outbreak? What do they do? Okay.
You dam all the cantaloupes in that one farm that they traced it back to. Yeah, they recalled it.
Yeah, so they did a food recall. Okay. Has anyone ever experienced a food recall before? Andrew, would you like to explain?
Blue Bell ice cream. Yeah.
Peanut butter? Okay, yeah. Any other ones?
I remember one time I went to the Subway, and I usually get spinach on my sandwich, and they were out of spinach, and they said it's because of anybody recalled.
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of different reasons for why someone would do a food recall, and that's what we're going to discuss today. That's going to lead us into our topic of the day of food crisis management. Okay, so today we're going to learn about what a food crisis is and how to respond during a food recall. Okay, so how is this? Okay, so food shortages. What would be a reason we would have a food shortage?
Drought.
Drought? Okay.
Disease.
Disease? Any other ones you can list? Name? Why there would be a food shortage? Well, okay, hang on. Back up a step because it's kind of clearing off. Okay. They're supposed to pop up at different times. This messed me up.
Try downloading it.
Enable editing there. Enable your editing first.
I'm not technology savvy. So
That's fine. Go to View.
Just hit
that's what
F5.
I'm looking for.
And then click your current slide.
Hit F5.
Hit
Oh.
F5.
On the top.
Just hit F5.
Okay,
There
there
you
we go. That's what I try to set up at the beginning of the class when they're different times, but oh well. Okay, so that's our lesson objective. Okay, so a food crisis. The definition of a food crisis is a long and extensive shortage of food, which results in deaths. So can anyone name the reasons why we would have a shortage of food? And we have disease, drought. Can you list any more? Okay, so here's some. Rises in prices, drought, flooding, war, and disease. So you know what rises in prices are. Obviously, if food gets more expensive to buy, less people can buy it, and they would have a shortage. Drought, not enough water, make the plants grow. Flooding, all the food is destroyed in a flood, and we have none to eat. So war. How would war affect the food shortage?
It could always be like food terrorism.
Or food terrorism. Perfect. That's exactly where I was going. Is bioterrorism. Okay, so bioterrorism attack is the deliberate release of viruses, bacteria, and other germs or agents used to cause illnesses or death in people, animals, and plants. So America is pretty safe on this, but a lot of countries have problems with it. Obviously, we have to control the income of food from other countries, and they all have to be inspected. So if a bioterrorism attack ever happened, we would have a food crisis on our hands. So after war, we had disease, and that's like what we were talking about earlier with a food recall. So food recall is a voluntary action by a manufacturer or distributor to protect the public from products that may cause health problems or possible death. A recall is intended to remove products from sale, distribution, and consumption when there is reason to believe the products may be contaminated or misbranded. So what would be some of the reasons that a food product is being recalled? Like, do you know any of the possible salmonella? Okay, so that would be a contaminant disease. Andrew?
Listeria.
Listeria. Okay. So here are the most popular food recalls. Contamination with a pathogen, E. coli, Listeria, Salmonella. Foreign objects such as plastic, glass, or metal fragments. So I know at Publix they did a recall on some cakes one time because they had metal fragments in their cakes. So it's just a contamination of a foreign object, and they have to recall that object or food. A nutrient imbalance, mislabeling kind of there. Undeclared allergens such as peanut, tree nut, milk, eggs, oil, saltfish, etc. So if the company does not label that their food product contains these, and then someone eats it and has an allergic reaction, the food company would be responsible for it. So they want to get these off the shelves as soon as possible to avoid any of that. So now we're going to talk about what happens if you're ever in a food recall. So the steps are to first identify the product. Second, identify the reason for the recall. Step 3, return the recalled product. And step 4, clean your kitchen. So first we need to identify the product. There are very specific food recalls. So if you hear on the news that they're recalling peanut butter, you don't want to just automatically assume that you have bad peanut butter. You need to go check it out, what the exact recall is. There's going to be an exact date, an exact brand, an exact product number that is affected, and then all the rest of the peanut butter should be safe. So you want to identify what the actual reason is, or actual product is. And then you want to identify your reason for the recall. So if the reason is mislabeling that this particular food had an egg base that they didn't say, and people are allergic to it, if you're not allergic to eggs, this necessarily wouldn't affect you. There would be no reason for alarm. But if your family is allergic, then you would want to be concerned and you would want to return the product immediately and get a refund. If you've already consumed the food and you have no problem with it, then that's just kind of it. And then step 4 would be to clean your kitchen. So if you have bad chicken and you haven't cooked it yet and it has salmonella, you want to clean and sterilize everything that was in it. Obviously clean your kitchen, and you want to do that anyways to keep your kitchen clean and keep contaminants out of your own kitchen. Alright, so can anyone kind of rehearse the steps that I just went through for me? Tell me what to do if there's a food recall. Michelle?
Identify the product first.
Okay, first. Second step.
Know what the recall is for the product.
Return the product if you haven't already consumed it. Clean your kitchen. Very good. All right. So to kind of wrap up class today, I want to pass out another handout here for everyone. You're going to read this on your own, and if you have a highlighter, you can use it. If not, I have some for you. And this handout is talking about the Cantaloupe Farm from the first story. And I want you to go through and highlight where the farm messed up at. What are the possible reasons that they were contaminated? You can underline it or use highlighters. Anyone raise their hand and tell me one of the reasons why contamination might have occurred at the Cantaloupe Farm? Andrew.
The washing and drying equipment appeared to be uncleanable and dirt product buildup was visible on some areas of equipment.
Okay, so they had dirty machinery.
Yes.
They removed their antimicrobial wash.
Yeah, so they didn't even have antibacterial wash to wash the cantaloupes in. Was there any other reasons you found? So, obviously this is why there's inspections and why you have to be safe with food because of contamination. contamination occurs, then you could get a lot of people sick, and even people died from this outbreak just simply because they didn't clean the cantaloupes well. And so as your exit ticket, I want you to write down just improvements that this farm should have made and hand it to me on your way out the door. And that's going to lead into tomorrow's lesson where we're going to go through different scenarios and write safety management plans for food crisis.
Do we write it on this?
Yep, just at the bottom.
Can you repeat the questions?
Just write down what the farm should have improved on. And then that's it. You can just hand those in on the way out of class. Yeah, keep yours.
Okay, good job. Okay, Kelsey, so the question is, what did you like about your teaching demonstration?
I liked my introduction and kind of led into the lesson well. I liked that, and the students answered questions well, and it actually led perfectly into where I was going.
And then if you could redo something or something that you can improve on.
Obviously, I would test my PowerPoint because it really threw me off on how I wanted to present questions, because then the answers just popped up on the board and I had to try to remember what I was going to ask before it popped up on my PowerPoint slide.
What other comments or comments?
Question: where did you get this item? Because it's erasable. I've never seen that before. It's really cool. I don't know how it worked, but I tested it and it worked. Where did you get this?
My roommate has stolen it out of her bedroom this morning.
I appreciate never give it back.
You can get it from Staples.
Really?
Yeah, or Office Depot.
All right.
I didn't know that either. I didn't even pay attention. Yes.
I thought you adjusted to your technology probably well, considering the circumstances. Don't you just, well, it's not going to work, so just roll with it.
I really liked how you listed like websites of where to find it. Like if a student was to get put in a situation they were in a food recall, like you would go to safefoodsafety.gov and like be able to find what you need to there.
I like how you went over the steps multiple times, then asked us what the steps were.
I like how you, with the two articles, the second one was like a follow-up to the first one, like it was relevant and we'd already talked about it a little bit, so it was like more engaging because of that, I think.
Your posture is really good. Well, like your movements, like it was very natural. It wasn't like you were like.
Gotcha. Like, when you said that, I was like,
Well, kind of the way that you did some moves were kind of natural compared to some people who like very intentionally do things. Or like.
Thank you. I naturally talk my
Yeah.
words anyways. Years of FFA.
Anything else?
Any improvements?
I thought the slides could have been a little more not eye-catching, like not like distracting, but just more
Like more visuals and stuff? Like,
kind of like they were just very black and
I
white.
saw
Like,
that earlier too.
like theirs had like a template, so there was like a little bit of color. But I did like the size of your text. I could clearly see it from anywhere in the room.
I don't know. This is just me personally, but I don't like doing the popcorn. It was good technique and it worked, and
I mean,
really
I
like
hate
how
when teachers use it too, but it's
how
like,
it connected.
yeah,
but-
to help make sure.
Yeah,
There's a long
and I don't know
article.
how else you would have done it.
Yeah, to make sure kids are following along. That's what I thought of,
Yeah.
like, because it was a long article.
Yeah.
If it was just this short piece, they could have done it on their own, I guess.
Yeah, I think that was. I thought that was a good technique with the popcorn style, but it really depends upon your audience. I think that works a lot better for younger kids. Like even once you get up into junior and senior, it depends on what type of environment you want to set in your classroom. You know, when I had construction kids, like we had a very professional environment. Like I respected them a lot, they respected me a lot, and just doing a popcorn style thing, it seemed almost like I was undermining the professionalism of the class. But you know, if you have younger kids, or you know, if students like doing that, I think popcorn is a great style.
Like, good science 2 is probably like sophomore, junior, so still.
Yeah, so that's okay. And I liked how you, at least I don't know if you did this intentionally or not, but you gave everyone a chance to participate, and it really made sure that students were following along as well, like reading aloud like that and having an opportunity. Otherwise, if one person was just reading it, people start drifting away and stuff like that. But the popcorn style makes sure that everyone's following along because they know they're going to have to go eventually. That's why I was like writing notes down and stuff on this, so I wasn't like following along, and then that's why like, I went after Bo, and I was like, I don't know if I should go or not, and then I kind of went. But anyway, I was going to say that I noticed like after everyone went, then you just kind of read the rest. I think that was a good strategy too, because sometimes it does take a long time for students to read, and when it's a lot like this, and this is your interest approach, you want to stay within 10 minutes. By just reading it, you know, yourself afterwards, and you kind of caught up on time.
Especially since there were just like 2-liners.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I had one paragraph, and if Andrew would have read his paragraph instead of one line, it would have been perfect for me to just read all the lines.
Yeah.
He cheated it. It's really hot up here.
I know,
It's
right?
hard to
I'm
just
so
read
hot back here. So what's one strategy? Just goes to anyone to help students out with like reading when you want to do read alouds, but you'll have some students that really, really struggle with reading. So what's some strategy that you could use to help those students out? Especially if you're doing the popcorn style, they might feel like crap, you know, when they struggle with reading and people laugh and giggle. Like it happens.
I did the same approach with my roommates last night, and she was like, "How do you pronounce Listerius?"
So what's something you could do if you had a student that really struggles with reading, but you want them to participate?
Could you like not call them out, but like start them out with like a quick like little opener, like a one sentencer at the very beginning, like say, oh, like Austin's gonna start us out. Not that you can't read.
That's about right.
Yeah, so maybe give that student intentionally a smaller chunk to read, so that way they're still participating, but yet we're not, you know, waiting for that student to read a whole paragraph with difficult words and stuff like that. So maybe purposely
like
giving.
call on students to go next instead of just having it go around the room.
Yeah.
As long as it's random.
Yeah, so that's one disadvantage of popcorn is it's almost kind of like random, like you can't plan ahead of time. But you could. Well, I was thinking like if you did something like that, so you could give students an easier thing to read, or if you could somehow plan ahead of time like what they're going to read out loud. So that way this student has time to read through that a couple times and practice it before they read it out loud, and that helps sometimes too.
What about you do the thing where like some kids like they'll just read like you tell them to read a sentence in the paragraph, like you show them what sentence, and then you like elaborate. I had teachers do that where it's like just read sentence 3, and then they elaborated what the rest of the paragraph meant.
That's kind of a cool strategy. The other thing too is, I mean, you don't even have to do it as a class. You can still have group readings out loud, only within a groups like 3 or something. So that way it takes a lot of pressure off of that as well. Then a couple comments. So I really like the handouts. I think those are always good when you have some sort of handouts in a lesson. And by the way, like if you don't have access to a printer or anything like that, I don't want you to have to pay 10 cents a page to print things out. So you can email those to me, or even better, if you like show up 15 minutes before your lecture, we can just go make copies of them. So that's fine in the future. If you have access to a printer, print them out ahead of time. Let's save us both trouble. Also, this goes to anyone. If one of your main objectives is to make sure that students understand the steps in the demonstration, like a handout of the steps would would be good as well. All right, good job.
They have to wash it
So if there's enough time, I can